Hi, this is the Headset Historian. So today I want to take a look at and review the crystal here, the Pimax crystal. So I've had this headset for about 4 months. I'll go into that in a bit further detail later. For reference, I was in the beta testing, so I received the beta unit, pre-retail unit, a few months before it became released to the public. So that's how I've had this headset for so long. This is actually the third crystal I've had, which is another thing I'll touch on later. Two disclaimers about this video that I'd like to make. First disclaimer is that this is unscripted. So this is YouTube for me is very much just kind of a thing I enjoy doing as a hobby. I don't intend to monetize or anything like that. So unfortunately I can't dedicate the time to properly scripting videos that I would like to, but if you want a well scripted, well thought out, very very thorough and deep review of the Pimax crystal, I'd recommend you check out Omni whatever. His channel is brilliant and he has probably the best video on the crystal that I've seen to date. However, with any VR headset, I would always strongly recommend checking from a wide range of reviewers, more so than probably any other electronic, just because VR headsets are so specific to the individual. One headset that is ideal for one person can be terrible for another person, and it doesn't come down to specs. It comes down to things like head shape, eye distance, and not even just IPD. I mean how deep set your eyes are. There's so many variables that come down to the human body and the personal experience of the individual that it does make it quite difficult to give a really well informed review that will apply to a wide range of people. Really, it's only going to apply to yourself. Check out as many reviews as you can before making a purchase on any VR headset, especially one that's more high-end like this. The second disclaimer is that I paid for this headset myself, but I did get it discounted. I didn't get it discounted in relation to this YouTube channel or the video or anything like that. I received a discount because I done some translation work with Pimax. I did get this headset for a discount. I still paid for the majority of the price, and I paid for that myself. I just want to make that disclaimer, and I guess it's probably also worth pointing out that I was in the beta testing, so I have been in touch with Pimax. I have been in touch with their staff and worked with them on certain issues, so there is a certain amount of bias that's going to come from that, and I think it's just important to make note of that while ideally I will be as non-biased as possible, there is things where subconsciously you don't even realize that it's affected you, so I think it's worth taking that into account as well, or at the very least making you aware as a viewer before going ahead with the review. So let's get started. This is the Pimax crystal. Now the part that most people always want is the conclusion, so I think I'll start with that, which is an unusual format, but what I will say is that I think this is probably the best headset on the market right now if you are the right person for it, which is a weird way to say it. I don't mean to imply that the headset is a gatekeeper, that you have to earn the respect of the headset or something like that. No, that's not what I mean. What I mean is that if you are the type of person that typically gets recommended Pimax headsets, so if you are a tinkerer, if you don't mind rather, tweaking settings and kind of, fiddling with trying every USB port on your computer, things like that. If you don't mind that, then that makes this headset a lot more viable for you. If you've had a Pimax headset in the past and that didn't bother you, then I will say that this is less troublesome than older Pimax headsets, so that's already a good jumping off point. The only other thing I'll say is if this headset is comfortable for you or not will be likely a deal breaker, and that's something that unfortunately a review can't really tell you. A reviewer can say that this headset's super comfortable or this headset's super uncomfortable, but really it comes down to the individual. For example, the Reverb G2, for me that headset is unwearable, but the vast majority of people would find it an incredibly comfortable headset. I will talk about the comfort, of course, my own experience, but I just really want to drive home that point that I don't think you can really make any major decision based on someone else's interpretation of the comfort. I think it really has to come down to yourself. First thing I'd like to talk about is hardware and design. So the hardware in this is, pretty cutting edge in a lot of ways. It's got eye tracking, it's got motorized IPD, it's got QLED panels, highest resolution on the market. Yeah, so I'd say the build quality it's good. It's not great, it's not bad. The front part, this headset here, this all feels very solid. This faceplate lifts off for the interchangeable faceplate aspect. That doesn't feel at all flimsy. It doesn't feel like that would ever fall off. You really would have to deliberately take that off. That's something that people, realistically, I wouldn't be expecting to be removing and replacing too often, so that shouldn't be a huge issue. The head strap itself, it's okay. It's very similar to head straps in the past. Like this, I really don't think this would ever actually break. It feels a lot more sturdy than, for example, the Quest 2 Elite strap or anything like that. Most of the parts feel fine. The quality feels decent. I think realistically most people would be quite happy with the build quality of this. It doesn't feel super flimsy. It doesn't feel like it's going to fall apart. I don't really have much else to say about the build quality. It's decent. So there's no complaints there. Of course it could be a bit better, but I really don't think it would be swaying anyone one way or the other. I can't really speak for the internals, so I'm just talking about the build quality of the feel of the outside. So I don't know how sturdy this is, in terms of taking a fall or taking a hit. That's something I've not been willing to test, of course, seeing as I paid for this myself. The longevity in terms of that, I think, would be pretty much a guess on anyone's part at this stage, probably Pimax included. So you might notice that I've put a head strap here or backrest on it. So from that I'll get into the comfort. The comfort is by far my biggest gripe with this headset. I know a lot of people have said it's very comfortable, and I completely believe them. I think for them it is comfortable. For me, it's not super uncomfortable. Like it's quite middle of the road, I guess. I would say it's as comfortable as maybe a Quest 2 or the Vive DAS or something like that. So it's totally wearable. The issue is the inertia, turning side to side. Putting this on the back. So how I've done this is this is from a Quest 2 and I just velcroed it here so to keep it just so it doesn't pop up, and then it's just fed through the head strap. So that does help with the inertia a good bit, and I much prefer this feeling of having the back of your head cupped as opposed to just a pad resting on it. This for me is essential to have something like this. Otherwise I would have had to mod on a Vive DAS, which I did do, but because the battery bank doesn't go back far enough, it wasn't really a great solution. So anyway, in terms of comfort, it is well balanced. I would say it's quite well balanced. I never felt super uncomfortable or anything like that, but for longer sessions I found it, I tend to play active games. I play shooters, I play horror games, so there's a lot of kind of quick movements, and it does feel like you're kind of struggling against the headset in those moments. If you're a simmer, if you're someone that plays, maybe slower paced experiences or seated, you'll probably not have much issue with this. It really comes down to the individual, but I would imagine the majority of people would be fine with this. If you're quite a small person, like my partner for example, found this headset much too heavy and cumbersome. She basically just couldn't wear it from the get-go. So like she could wear it, but for like 5 minutes. So that says something. If you're a small person, maybe this would be, a bit ridiculous. I don't know. It really is my only complaint with the headset, to be totally honest, and that's kind of, I suppose, giving you a bit of an insight into the rest of this review. But the weight and the comfort, the weight actually more than the comfort. Like the comfort is fine, if that makes sense. Like if you put the two separately, comfort as in how it sits on your head, how it rests on your head, that's actually fine. But the weight and the way the weight is displaced here and the inertia that comes along with that, that's where I find the issue. So it's the inertia more so than the comfort, but inertia I think is a big issue on headsets. If the lenses move around at all, it is going to have visual impacts. It is going to cause eye fatigue. So that's a tough one. It really is my only major concern with the headset. Well, okay, it's not my only major concern, but it's, all things perfect, all things working. That would be a fundamental thing that can't be changed. That would be very much a con on this headset. So you've got the whole kitchen sink, you've got everything else, you've got half the basement in here, brilliant. But do you want to be wearing most of a house on your head? Yeah, that's a tough one. If it was just a kitchen sink in my head, maybe I could handle it. But I'll stop it, whatever that analogy is. But yeah, that is probably the main thing. And I know I'm sounding like a broken record now. I'll kind of circle back around to it again a bit later. Let's move on to the displays and visual quality. You've heard it before, I'm going to say it again. Absolutely brilliant. Nothing comes close at the moment that I've tried, at least. I've tried the Vario Aero, I've tried the XR3 actually, I've tried the Xtal 3. I've tried, quite a few high-end headsets. Unfortunately, I haven't tried the big screen beyond, so I can't comment on that. But I've tried, all the other headsets you can think of. I've pretty much tried them: Vive Pro, Quest Pro, Quest 2, obviously, Pico 4, Reverb G2, all these headsets. And I will say, particularly in terms of brightness, I absolutely love how bright this headset gets. It is the brightest headset I've ever seen by far, and it is beautiful. Really, 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 really good looking. It looks gorgeous. Everything looks gorgeous. Colors are great. Brightness is great. The fact that it can go to 120 hertz, and I had some issues in the beta, and since then, since I got a retail unit, I've had zero issues at 120 hertz. It's great. The visuals are just brilliant. These lenses, they are really, really good lenses. I had the plastic lenses before, and yeah, the glass lenses are a huge step up. How much that is to do with material and how much is it to do with, tolerances, calibration, etc., I don't know. Could you get this same experience with well calibrated and well designed plastic lenses? Again, I don't know. I'm not a material scientist or anything like that, but what I do know is that these lenses are fantastic. The colors are just so good. The lenses do have some small issues in terms of I wouldn't say the lenses have issue, but when you're looking visually through, if the headset moves on your head, there can be some very, very slight bubbling, if that makes sense. Like the center of the image seems slightly protruded, sort of like kind of like a fisheye effect. It seems a bit different than distortion. It's more of a warping, but I guess it's maybe just a very mild distortion. However, if you're in the sweet spot, and there is a sweet spot, the sweet spot is a distortion sweet spot, or this warping sweet spot, as opposed to a clarity sweet spot. So the clarity is good everywhere, but you'd want to be in that kind of sweet spot. It's quite large. It's not really an issue to find or get into, but where it does become slight issue is the inertia. That can be somewhat problematic. But I would say, personally, I've only ever really noticed it when I'm first putting on the headset and moving it a bit to get into position, and then I've not seen it at all during gameplay. So yeah, visually this is brilliant. It is the best you can get. That's that. Next, tracking and controllers. So here are my controllers. So these straps I'm using, these are just Quest 1, Quest 2 AMVR straps, and they fit on perfect. Controllers, I've talked about this before, my first impressions, and my impression is the same. The controllers feel brilliant. I really like the feel of these controllers. I really like the size of them. The buttons are good. These the trigger and grip could probably be a bit less plasticky or a bit less light, but honestly, it's fine. The haptics, I've heard some people really bash on the haptics. I don't know if I've just been lucky. The haptics are fine. I wouldn't say they're not amazing. They're not like Quest Pro haptics. They're not linear actuators or anything like that, but they're fine. I would say they're as good as Quest 2, I guess. A bit better maybe. They feel a bit stronger than Quest 2, but yeah, the haptics are fine. The controllers, build quality, no issue there. Quality control, there may be an issue. In the 3 pairs of controllers that I've gotten from the 3 different headsets, I will say that one controller had a grip button that was sticky. This one's totally fine, but it would, kind of stick and take a second to pop back up. Maybe half a second, but still, any length of time is can really mess you up in a game. So, and then the other one was, if another controller was, if I held down on the trigger quite hard, it would pop in and you would have to pop it back out. So You do have to be quite hard to do that, but if you're playing an intense game, horror game or something like that, it's quite easy to kind of get end up doing something hard. So quality control on the controllers could be done improving. I think just have people test these buttons before they go out, make sure that they don't stick and make sure that they don't depress too far. It would be very, very frustrating to get a brand new headset that you've waited a long time for and spent a lot of money on, just to have a controller that almost works perfect, but there's some small defect like that, and realistically you should RMA for that, so then that adds on a whole pile of time, so that kind of sucks. So yeah, I think the quality control there could be improved. The tracking is fine, maybe you could say fine. It's fluctuating. It was better a couple of weeks ago. It's gotten slightly worse in the most recent update, but I think they will get there. It's honestly better than I expected from the get-go, and to this point it's better than I expected. You know, it blows something like the Vive Cosmos out of the water, of course. Windows Mixed Reality, it's definitely better than that. I would say it's worse than Pico 4 or Quest 2. It's not far from the Pico 4, and in certain ways it can be very solid. What I've found is if I'm holding the controller like this, if I tilt it down, it tends to drift back towards me. That's my main issue that I've been finding. And for shooters and stuff, that can be quite problematic. They've improved things like the occlusion quite well, so the occlusion is not nearly as bad if you're, you know, holding two hands with a rifle or such. That's been improved. I think it will get better. I think it'll keep improving, and right now, unless you're playing a competitive shooter, it's honestly totally fine. I've been using it for hours and hours without any issue in games like VR Chat or you know, things like Half-Life Alyx, where you know, it's a shooter but it's not competitive shooter. It's not something where you need like pinpoint precision. Something like Ghost of Tabor, Pavlov, I find myself struggling against the tracking in these controllers. Things where you're kind of, you know, fiddling with reloading guns and different things. So in that regard, in those types of scenarios, then I wouldn't be happy with these controllers. But everything else except competitive shooters, honestly, I'm totally fine with this. For what it's worth, I haven't tried it with Beat Saber, but I have heard good things about Beat Saber because it seems like that kind of fast, larger movements does seem to suit this tracking quite well. So controllers, tracking's quite good, honestly. Better than I would have expected. Totally fine for the majority of people. Headset tracking itself, pretty much flawless. I've never once had a single issue with the headset tracking. Headset room setup, however, that has improved a lot actually, but originally it was very annoying. I would have to keep resetting my room. I haven't actually had to reset it in about a week now. Yeah, so I am on beta firmware, so maybe that has something to do with it, but I haven't actually had to reset my room in about a week, while before I would have to reset it pretty much every time. Audio quality. If you have the DMAS, the audio quality is excellent. I cannot speak for the other audio solution. I feel bad. I should have tried it. I never actually tried it. I tried it once back in October on the roadshow and it was dreadful, and I've never heard anyone say anything other than it's dreadful. So DMAS or nothing. You know, if you don't have the DMAS, then I don't know. They should not be selling this headset without the DMAS, to be totally honest. And it would be great if they could you know, actually have black DMAS to match this, because this kills me slightly. My soul dies a little bit every time I see it, but that's just me. The DMAS is great. I'm lucky enough that I don't have the latency bug, and apparently Pimax are working with Qualcomm at the minute to try and fix whatever the latency is, but for some people's PCs, and it seems like a non-insignificant portion, potentially half of people if not more, they will be dealing with latency when you're on the higher audio quality setting. There's a lower audio quality setting that doesn't have latency, but the audio is impacted significantly. On my setup, which is a 5800X3D and a 4090 with a B550 Tomahawk motherboard, on that setup I've had no latency whatsoever. It's just completely normal, and that's at the good quality audio quality. So for me, the audio is absolutely brilliant, and I would say as good, if not better, than the Index. So yeah, it's right up there with the best audio you can get with the DMAS. If it's not the DMAS, then yeah, not going to be a great experience. But yeah, the audio is very good, and hopefully they fix that bug. But be aware that that bug is still very much a thing, so your mileage may vary. Next, I'd like to talk about the software. How's the software for this? I would say the software's matured a lot from the older days. I mean, the software had already matured a lot from the earlier days, but it's improving constantly. There's still some weird small language things that we've all told them about many, many times, but for some reason have not been fixed. But most of those things are addressed. There's very little very little language issues in the Pimax software now. Since I got the retail unit, I will say it is the closest thing to plug and play that a Pimax headset has ever been. It's not going to be plug and play to the extent of an Index, because you do have to launch that intermediate software, and you do tend to want to tweak some settings and stuff like that, but it's pretty good. It's pretty low friction. Some people still seem to have issues, so that's kind of down to polish and down to a bug fixing type thing. In terms of the experience, when it's working as intended, I would say it's pretty good, but compatibility across the board still seems to be somewhat lacking. So I've been quite lucky in that regard. I had to change a USB port, but that's about the height of it. Other than that, it's been working really well for me, so I can't really complain too much personally. But that's why you need to go watch other reviews as well, because other people have definitely got their complaints. I don't reflect them. I haven't had those issues, but that's not to say they don't exist. Just I'm one of those people that is lucky enough to not have it. Yeah, I'm not sure what else I really want to cover on this, because there's a lot of things that have been covered to death. I suppose what might be best is I'll open this up to questions, and I'll try to answer any questions that people want in maybe a follow-up video or just in comments. Overall, I will say that this is probably the best headset on the market if it works for you, if it suits you. So if the comfort's good for you, and if the experience, if it happens to be quite well compatible with your computer and setup, then this is the best headset you can get, in my opinion. Caveat there being that I haven't tried the big screen beyond, but personally, brightness and resolution is a big deal for me, along with having 120 Hz. Now I know the big screen beyond because of the OLED and persistence, or the OLED response times rather, that apparently lower refresh rates feel closer to higher refresh rates in LCDs. So yeah, I can't really comment on that. I'm not going to say that this is better than the big screen beyond. They're very, very different. But out of the headsets that I've tried, out of the headsets that I've had so far, this, in my opinion, is the best on the market, with the major caveat being the comfort may be good for you, it may be bad for you. And by comfort, I mostly mean inertia. And then the other caveat is quality control. Quality control at Pimax seems to have improved quite a bit, but it still has a long way to go. I received a unit that was dead, just literally did not turn on, and then I also received a controller with sticky buttons. So for me, yeah, I guess you would say 2 out of 3 headsets that I've gotten, quality control was not great. So this one is great. This one is brilliant. So when you get a good one, it really is something special. It is really something good. It's just that there is a slight lottery there. And I can't really speak to the RMA process, honestly, because I had a direct line of communication. So my RMA process was still a bit slow and painful, but it was, I would imagine, probably better than the majority of people's, but than the average person. But honestly, I don't know, because I've heard mixed things. I've heard some people, normal customers getting incredible RMA response times, and then other people, dragging on weeks and weeks. So that's something, unfortunately, I can't really, commit to any one way or the other. I will say my experience has been good, but my experience is not that of the norms. So yeah, overall, I think it's a great headset. I think the price is fine, to be totally honest, for what you're getting. Maybe 200 cheaper would have been kind of the sweet spot, I suppose, but I do think the price is, compared to what's on the market, compared to what, considering what you get, I do think the price is actually fine. However, at that price, I would want to see a 2-year warranty or such. My ultimate conclusion, so this is the third conclusion, I guess, but ultimately the last bit of advice that I'd give you is wait until this is available on Amazon or, some third-party retailer like that, where you're dealing with an intermediary customer service. Not that Pimax customer service is bad, it's just that you've got that peace of mind, and of course you don't want everyone to just move everything to Amazon, but for a high price item like this, I can totally understand why someone might want to, because you do get quite good protections there. So yeah, overall though, I really like this headset. I think it's a brilliant headset. I do find the weight and comfort is just not for me. It's a struggle. It's borderline a deal breaker. It's hard to say. Still have yet to make up my mind on that. Like, sometimes I'm fine with it, sometimes it bothers me. I think it kind of depends, some days some days you just have less tolerance for things that are a bit less comfortable. So that really kind of comes and says a lot. So yeah, if you have any questions, please do feel free to ask. I think most people are probably aware of the situation. I have eye tracking enabled in this because I'm a beta tester. The eye tracking works perfectly. I have no issue with it. Then other than that, I don't have any features that are unreleased or anything, so I can't speak on the all-in-one. I can't speak on wireless or any other features that have yet to come. But eye tracking's good. That should be out soon, I would imagine. I don't see why it wouldn't be out to the public now. It's pretty reliable, I think, at this point. But actually, then again, maybe other people, maybe there's a compatibility thing that they're still working through, like the way the latency. I don't have any audio latency on this, while other people do. So yeah, maybe that's a factor. But overall, I think it's a very good headset. I would probably wait for it to go on Amazon. Watch as many reviews as you can. Feel free to ask me questions. And yeah, I think that covers it all. So hope you all have a great day, and thanks for watching.